Date is March 8th, 19th, 2024. Commissioner Banks, if you would please lead us in our invocation. Stand if you're able, please.
Oh, Heavenly Father, we thank you today for all your love and your kindness and your mercy that you show upon us. We ask that you continue to bless our community, bless all our efforts as commission to try to bless their family. We ask this in your son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For the record, we have all commissioners here except for Commissioner Lori, who is excused today due to an illness.
He'll be on,
But he will be on YouTube.
He'll be following.
Okay.
He'll be following you too.
Okay. And I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Today's workshop is an opportunity before the bringing it to a meeting for a vote to go over the draft of we've seen a lot of pieces and parts of the master plan, the opportunity areas. So this is the full draft of the master plan and the redevelopment plan update and implementation strategy. And so we want to give us more time to go through it, go over it before a regularly scheduled commission meeting where we have many other items to consider. So today is just about this plan. Our consultants are here to sort of point out what there is more now than we've already seen. And then the idea is to discuss it and work through. So when we're done, we're ready for the approval on April 11th. So I'll turn it over to Benoit.
This is just for the record, this is a working lunch workshop. So maybe we're enjoying our lunch as well. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, Charles. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. So I'm Benoit Panico with Ayers Associates, and with me is Craig Fraser. Yeah.
You'll have to hold it.
No, it'll pick them up a little bit.
Okay. All right. Thanks again, and we'll speak to the mic as best as possible. But today's session, Charles had asked us to come in and go through in detail with you on what the changes are to the plan since you've last seen it. And as you all know, just to recap quickly, we started the project in July, August. We had a series of public meetings with the community at large, and we've had discussions with you and the CRA board and the planning commission. So we presented the first phase, which was the studies and assessments of the community. Then we went on to present some initial concepts in December. We had that kind of in a long extended workshop session with the Planning and Zoning Commission, with the CRA board and the City Commission. And then we came back in January to present that again to you and take the feedback from you. So what we have today is a consolidated document of a complete draft, or it's close to being finished. We've taken on board all the comments received from across the surveys, from the public meetings, from Charles and his team review, and from your comments as well. So in this workshop, what we hope to do is just quickly present to you what's changed, or the highlights of the major turning points, or at least some of the additions and the changes to what we've done so far. So we'll focus on the first few, up to chapter 3 is just a recap. So essentially of where we've been with the phase 1. This report has to be read in conjunction with the phase 1 report, which has got all the maps and the background and the studies related to it. But we will exclude it from the big report, otherwise it'll just become too big, and the discussion would kind of derail us from the point of what is new. So the first 2-3 chapters is really about where we've been through the process, the purpose of the report, the public engagements, the summaries, the feedbacks we've heard, and chapter 4 really is the actual meat of the plan. In chapter 3, we've established the vision. That hasn't changed. That's been consistent throughout, with the community and with you all. So that's a strong foundation for the plan. So in the master plan, we had 6 opportunity areas. We heard specific feedback on each of those opportunity areas. We've gone back in and tweaked them, notably on opportunity area 4, which is the Lake Stella waterfront. There was a clear direction that we did not want any multifamily or higher density residential, so we toned that down. All the drawings have been changed. There was some more detail added on the streetscape elements and the alley activation, the ideas about that. And above and beyond, what we've done is the last chapter really is a detailed implementation plan, which is totally new. Essentially, what we've done is peel off all the projects from these 6 opportunity areas into tangible action items and link a time frame to it with an initial budget and who the partners would be. So we'll focus on that quite a bit, but we'll quickly go through the changes before we go into that. So we had the citywide master plan framework. Initially, there was discussion about having Summit Street in a different configuration, having 3 lanes. We've had discussions with the DOT, and the decision here taken was to continue to have it in its current configuration. But in addition to that, explore the possibilities of having some more safe pedestrian crosswalks. So we've recommended up to 5 crosswalks within the central area. It's in the middle. So in principle, we for crosswalks to happen, it's in the middle of the block where there is a median, so you can actually cross the road, stop safely, and then cross the rest. The second recommendation that we had was, so we've had 2 discussions with DOT, as I updated you last time, and then we had a follow-up conversation with them about reducing the speed from 35 to 25 in the downtown area to make it more safe. We haven't heard back from them, but that's a discussion that can continue, because in their memorandum to us after they did the reconfiguration of the street, with the median and the sidewalk, they left an open-ended discussion about crosswalks. So we picked up on that. We sent a correspondence to them, but that'll be an action that will be taken upon after the completion of the plan, to have that continued conversation with them.
Can you ask Charles, do you have questions as he goes along, so that with this?
All right, just.
Yeah.
Fielding the questions as they come up, yeah.
Yeah.
So where did you ask for it to be changed down from 35 to 25?
Within the 10 block area within downtown. So the focus would be, within the 10 block area of downtown, we want a reduced speed. So it'll ultimately depend on them where they will make a justification. Ideally, we've also recommended 2 additional signals, or in the future. The traffic doesn't warrant signals right now. So one is on Vernon Avenue where that comes in from the east-west, and the second is on Junction Street. So it'll be a 3-stop light town. It'll just reduce the traffic. So it may well be, it's from that new light to the second new light, that whole area will be 25 miles per hour, and with an additional 5 crosswalks.
Mayor, I have a question. So do you have specific locations for the crosswalks? Like-
Yes,
Yeah, it's on the map.
it's on this map on page 29.
See the little guy walking across?
Yeah,
On yours? Can you
correct.
see on yours,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens? Can you see on yours?
Okay.
You should be able to see.
29.
Page 29.
Okay,
It's
so,
the very first, second page. No,
No, she's got different ones, too, a little
She's
bit.
What is it there?
And then she's got less, and then shows the lights.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's the one you're looking.
mine shouldn't be the same as the.
It's the same. You just got more of a large copy. You just want the entire plan, so we
Okay,
or the whole.
so the northernmost crosswalk. Okay, so it doesn't address any crosswalks as far as Winn-Dixie?
No.
Okay.
We focused, yeah, sure.
Okay, but this is a plan for the whole CRA, right?
This is a plan focused on downtown. And so we focused the actions within the downtown area and where there's speed limits that can be reduced. So you want to have crosswalks within an area that has reduced speed.
It does include the corridor, the plan does, but we're not suggesting any crosswalks up there where it's 45 miles an hour.
No, we're not.
Okay, but the reason I raise that is because we have two opportunity areas, one to the north, one to the south. And we already had a full workshop because there's a residential community opposite Winn-Dixie. And we're also proposing more residential up that way. And that has already been expressed as an area of concern. So I just wanted to raise that because those people really on the east side don't have a sidewalk. And they've already brought that to us and to DOT.
Okay, we can add that in that opportunity area. We will include that.
Right, that's kind of what I'm saying, that's a
Okay.
priority. That's quite a few people in there. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the big change is these new lights that we proposed. We don't know when that will happen because DOT does their own studies on traffics and volumes, but we've expressed that. And we think it's a good, two good nodes. Our traffic engineers did the assessments and all of the crosswalk locations are based on uses surrounding it and potential pedestrian linkages. So it's not arbitrary. It was decided, we came up with the uses surrounding it and made those suggestions. So that's been issued to the DOT as a formal follow-up to our meeting that, Charles, myself, and another colleague of mine from our traffic engineer attended. So we issued that as well, but we'll include that as a continuing addendum in terms of following up with DOT. One of the other clarifications we did throughout the plan was clarify the distinction between the Florida designated Main Street and Main Street that's in the city. So we've taken off that categorization, and where we've called it out, we've mentioned that.
When you say, did you replace that with?
So we used to say like Central/Main Street. And it looked like we were talking about the street called Main, and we thought of the Main Street District,
Okay,
or the street called Main.
So that's shown in this graphic. So this graphic had that, it said Main Street, so we changed that. We've corrected all the images associated, the cross sections associated with the 3-lane. We had 3-lane and that configuration, so we changed that. We've added this image, what we call is a style sheet. It's for streetscape improvements. So this is guidance for the engineers and designers when they come on to do the actual streetscape design. Just to give inspiration on what we envision the streetscape to be. It's got to be active, live, murals, the kind of street furnitures, but all of this will be kind of discussed in the detailed design. It's dealing with the streetscape on Central Avenue from a concept or a master planning level. Area 1, which is the downtown Central Avenue, there was some minor changes made in terms of, there was a corner building that was proposed, or an urban plaza that was proposed in the corner right by the hotel site. So we've moved that. The urban plaza is back in the middle of the block where the trees are. We've further proposed an activated alley in the back of City Hall connecting all the way from Central to Florida Avenue. We've moved the building up, a new building right across the street from us here, we proposed a mixed-use building. That was one of the suggestions at the meeting. We've also included a couple of other mixed-use and retail buildings across the street from us on this side as potential brownfield redevelopment projects. One of the comments raised last time was Celebration Park and some kind of design inspiration. So we've included a Photoshop render of that. Basically, it cuts the parking in half, and then it releases the rest of the parking lot to a plaza area where you can actually watch the July 4th and have a view of the lake.
I have a question about
Yes.
that. Just, are we talking about the area down here by Street and yes? That's not our area, we don't own that
Well,
property,
we would take it over.
we would just take it over.
Yeah, Kelly wants to give it to us.
Kelly,
Okay, so they're ready to get it.
Yeah.
but,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, that at some point, that could happen, okay.
I'm sorry, I could not hear that at all. Somebody wants to give us what?
She was noting that the parking lot down there is the county's facility. So I acknowledge that, yes, the county we'd have to acquire that and the county has expressed they're interested in us taking that over.
Okay, so you're saying what portalet is that directly fronts?
Yeah, like, right there.
Yes, yeah, that's what part of lot.
That's,
Okay, so,
that could happen.
so I also have a question there, may I?
Yes.
Okay, so one question is, 100 on-street parking spaces, where exactly are these?
So it's on Central Avenue, and also the plan is for all the east-west streets, that's Florida Avenue, Eucalyptus, all of those streets to have on-street parking. So those streets will, at least in the 10 block area, where we call downtown, is to have on-street parking.
And
In the
so,
residential areas?
Yeah, up to that church, and then down to the
okay,
park, Leon Park.
well, wait a minute. So I'm not really getting, this is my concern. The mayor just said the words residential area. And I lived for 20 years in Tampa, so I'm very familiar with this. I'm not really, I think there's like some kind of conflict here. Are you envisioning that the residential area is no longer gonna be residential area?
No.
Okay, because it seems, so what you're saying is that this activity retail area on Central Avenue would be parking served by parking up on the east-west streets?
No, the parking on the east-west streets in the downtown area that's marked, which is, we are calling for additional mixed use and retail areas along Summit Street. So it's just that first street
Right?
where we will, where we are recommending on-street parking. So it is to provide the additional parking for those businesses that are within the downtown area. So if you see the graphic here, that the brown shaded area is the downtown area.
Right,
And Central Avenue is obviously the core. It's where we want a full on-street parking redesign. But already you have that, but, you know, reconfiguring it so you have, you know, properly designed, tighter intersections where you can safely cross. So, and in addition to that, all the east-west areas where we marked P, which is adjacent to Summit Street, is where we are proposing on-street parking.
okay, and what page do you have?
This is on 29.
Okay, and you have the markings of P?
Yes,
The square,
29.
the square P.
the square P represents on-street parking.
So you're back to 29, I was,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah, right,
I skipped ahead a little bit.
I don't know, we can see it.
right.
Okay.
Right, so, alright, well, I mean, to me, I have a few, I don't know, I just have a few concerns about how this is gonna work out, because I think not all of the not all of the residences have, I don't know, this has gotta work out somehow. Because if you're putting retail parking and event parking into residential areas, that lines up as a conflict, so
So,
let's figure that out.
so retail and event parking, so as you know, we proposed a parking structure.
Right.
So the focus of that will be there. It's just the, and then we have two other additional parking areas that surface parking lots that we propose. One is the one right behind City Hall, and the other one closer to where the fire station is right now. So that back area. So there's two additional areas where we recommend on-street, which you see in the P circle on page 29. That's where we proposed surface parking lots. And those are the primary event parking spaces and also additional retail. But then one of the things we hear constantly from mixed use and retail development is to have short-term parking for customers that want to pop in and out. So that's where on the
Right.
first two blocks of these streets, right off of Summit, there is opportunity to look at right of ways. There is opportunity to have on-street parking. So how you do it in terms of whether it's paved and marked, or if it's just marked, without a curb.
We currently allow on-street parking.
Yeah, they should define it further, yeah.
But this is what you're recommending, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And you find this in more urban areas. I mean, I was in Lone Park this weekend
Right.
and it was that way. People were parking,
Yeah.
they were parking on the street outside of that central area.
Yeah.
So if you go down to the golf court, it's all off, off-site parking. So, they got one little tiny parking lot, it fits maybe 20 cars,
Yeah.
but then you're on your own,
Yeah.
to come into where all the events are, so it's very common,
Yeah.
very common.
That's something that we might have to look at as we go forward, that if we are gonna have on-street parking, those, then it might just be one side can be, so
If we
that
were restricted.
you're gonna have to do it to where only one side could have that and not the other side, because otherwise, especially with our roads.
Absolutely.
So that's something we have to think about.
So I think the big message on this is if you look at the page 29, what we're focusing on is that brown shaded area to increase the residential areas or the number of units within that area, have that mixed use, create more retail spaces so that you have a vibrant downtown where you can increase your tax base, you can have more, an improved number of residents living closer to where we want it to happen without disturbing the surrounding residential neighborhoods. So that's the idea. I mean, everything that we talked about, the alley improvements, the streetscape improvements, the location of the surface parking lots, the location of the parking garage, all kind of coincide and relate to one another in terms of activating the downtown area. That's the big message. And then having those safe crosswalks, the signage, if you can see on the stars that you see right on Eucalyptus and right here next to Leon Park, those are the entry signages. So your downtown is defined, you have a different character, your streetscape has a different brick kind of pavement structure, and you feel that you're coming to downtown, not just driving through. That's the whole intent.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay.
Okay. Moving on to opportunity area 2, which is where we focus just immediately north of Central on Summit.
What page are you on?
Now I'm on page 36.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, give us a second to get there,
No problem.
please. Okay, is everybody on 36?
Got it.
So-
You guys on 36?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So this was the area that we had recommended on the northeast end, on the top left end, reconfiguring that as the government plaza. We changed all of that. The city hall is now within the school site, so we left that. However, we think with the improvement of the fire station right at the corner, there's an opportunity for you to have a building that could be leased, okay? As it could be an additional revenue stream because you own the land, and it could be a 2-story or a 3-story building. It's well within the downtown area, which you could have it as a retail area, you could have it as an additional office space, or even a medical center, which was one of the big, or a dentist place that, a modern dentist place that can be accommodated in the corner right here. So in addition to that, so we've left all of that commercial intact. We have it with a county center. And across the street, there were 2 older properties. One is a gas station. We think those are probably brownfield sites that need further investigation. We propose a combination of retail and mixed use in those 5 blocks.
Which one are brownfield, you believe, and that's directly across the street?
Yeah,
Tire center.
the tire center.
Okay.
And so those are the big changes. So that actually would give you a substantial amount of, some 50,000 square feet of commercial, retail, and mixed use as well. That really gives us an opportunity for more residential, more commercial to activate downtown. So obviously these are all private properties that need to be on the table to have this discussion, but at least it sets a tone for where the city wants to be in terms of activating their downtown. The other key concept here is, we talked about this briefly, is the activated alley and the repurposed city hall. So with the relocation of city hall and its functions to the old school site, we think that this building can be transformed into a retail dining kind of, I don't want to call it a food market, but at least a tourist village kind of small space right at the core, which can be leased and create that additional activity.
Much like we're finding again in more urban areas where they have small vignettes of activity of businesses.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And we've seen that across, like it's getting increasingly popular. I mean, it started in the late 2000s, but in some of the smaller, more tourist towns, you're actually seeing that. And people would like to, previously it was either a CVS or a Walgreens that did that, to buy trinkets and sandwiches or in that. But right now what they're doing is some of these older buildings that have this attractive mural, once you get in, this space actually lends itself perfectly to that. You can have a little kind of an internal small mall, and depending on how the structural integrity of this, we can look at other options as well. And then it backs up right onto the activated alley, and then between us here and Ace, and it creates that central kind of attraction for your downtown. And across the street, we recommended a mixed-use property right there. But one of the discussion points we had was when you're getting into that discussion of permitting, it would be good to have like some kind of an outdoor dining spillover area, so your building is set back like 10 feet. Because the intersection is so tight the way it is, it is part of that space, so we recommended that. That's more of a guidance to the private property.
That's another update I forgot to mention. The property has changed hands, looking to develop into an independently owned pharmacy, and maybe with a second use of coffee shop or something.
Okay, yeah.
So there's 2 uses there.
What changed hands?
Right
The
next
steel
door,
garage.
talking about that, it's sold.
Good news.
Tell me on the corner there.
Oh, gotcha.
Was,
Yes, yeah, right across where the
Yeah.
lot used to set up,
yeah, I seen somebody
under the independent pharmacy, secondaries.
taking this out.
Um, So we've also included, Charles commented on this, so we've included a sketch on the top left of this page, on page 36. It's some idea about how to improve the streetscape itself. So the big thing, as we know from our historical context, is to have more bricks and oaks. I mean, that is the character of our community. It's to have a more urban area where we're taking away the grass. We will want to have to infill it with brick, but have the concrete sidewalks because it's more level and it's much more comfortable to walk. And on Summit Street, we're thinking of proposing the same, at least in the 10 block area of downtown, to have inlays of brick within the concrete. So it just makes that impression. We're also proposing a kind of a marker, a downtown signage, like right there. If you look at your page, the design. So in addition to the two gateway signs into downtown and the city signs on the city boundaries, there'll be an additional marker. So right in downtown. So I think that has to be, again, through a process of design, how high you want it to be. Do you want it to be taller than this building, or do you want it to be smaller than this building? We recommend it is a complementary kind of function, so it doesn't take away from the mural, and it's more of an 8 feet level.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the thing in the intersection, the tree.
Oh, no, yeah, that's another one. On the plan, you'll see there's an inlay of an oak tree. As much as we heard from the folks in the public meetings to get back to the old days of having oak trees on Summit Street, and we have pictures of it. I don't think the space allows with the 4 lanes and the turn lane on the street, but we've actually put an oak inlay into the brick pattern. So, I mean, you can see it from there. It's at the intersection of Center and Summit.
What would that do with a root structure with those bricks? I mean, if you were to do the items there, I mean, are the roots gonna interfere with the bricks, or are they gonna?
No, he said there's no room for the oaks
But he just said it, but.
on 17.
On 17,
17.
The drawing.
It's a pattern in the intersection. So it's more of a brick pattern,
Okay.
I'm not putting.
not a real
You see it on
tree.
37, page 37.
It's just
Okay.
a design in the brick.
Okay.
We're trying to
Because
recreate
I was like, I
that.
don't think we want oak trees.
I don't think I don't think FDOT would
want
approve.
But, well, yeah, well, I'm trying to stay with them on their page, that I can follow, because the building, if we go back to 36, I would like to see in our final, if there's some way, that building just has no, and I know you're not focusing on the building, but we could do anything with that,
Which,
the rendering on that building on page 36.
And I just-
oh,
That's City Hall.
It's just,
I don't know why we would wanna focus on the building, you're just making it a space. We don't know what kind of building.
And I know, but that just, to me, just,
Use your
My-
imagination,
okay, well,
Well,
my imagination just still doesn't work there, and I'm very visual, yeah.
Mayor, I think that's a great point about the visual. This is part of the historic district, and we do have design standards. So I think it would be helpful to at least have something that suggested, what would be in keeping with the rest of the area. I don't know how you do that with the computer program.
Well, just like on page 37.
Yeah.
If you move ahead,
Yeah.
and these two have obviously
Oh,
moved
that
ahead. These two are moving ahead. That's a nice rendering, I like that rendering better. And so, that's all, I'm just
No,
saying.
we can add this.
Because you have to remember, this plan is not just for the 5 of us sitting here, this plan, because we don't know who will be sitting here in the future, and it's something that they're gonna look at, and they're gonna go, wow, they planned for that building.
Okay.
So, I just,
And I think we're on page 37, Harry and I have been here for a couple minutes, and, but up above, you're showing Summit Street, it's still having the medians, but boy, you're showing a whole lot of space, walking space, besides the buildings. One thing you forgot to put in are all the lamp posts and everything else that really kind of crush you into the sidewalk. And then I think, I don't know if that really represents us that well, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say, that we like have this nice walking path here. And you put grass, around the edges.
Yeah.
But anyway,
We'll actually limit the grass, won't we, in the
Yeah,
10
so,
blocks?
so
Sounds good.
I would,
Yeah.
anyway, I think that that's,
You can make that brick color, that green.
not quite,
Red brick.
what things actually
Right.
are.
agreed. And,
Well, you can see, it's just messy, you can see on the bottom picture how many holes we got, all throughout the whole
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Well, use your imagination up here.
I did.
I'm sorry, she fell right into that one. She fell right into that one. Go ahead.
so,
All right, I will.
fine, and Mayor, back on this building, we will add the facades. I mean, was a comment that, Charles made last week when we saw it. We got the team to render it, we just couldn't put that facade on it, so we'll.
Because you cleaned it right up, it looks great. If we could do that, that would be a marvelous thing, I think.
Okay, so,
Actually, Mayor, if I could, just while we're on page 37, Commissioner Burton has pointed out that it doesn't really look like us. When I take my eyes off Summit Street and go beyond, that part is really disturbing because that's residential area, or it was, and it looks like there's a 5-story building back there in the upper left-hand corner. And there's no trees whatsoever. It looks like you turned this into something. I don't know if that's residential and historic district back there on both sides.
You have to use your imagination too, Commissioner.
I just not part of what
I
I'm
think
saying.
that's supposed to just, since this is
Yeah.
just, it's,
Right.
He kind of ends it there at the.
it fades out, you can see it's fading
Right,
out.
but it fades into something that really doesn't look like the area that's back there.
we can clean that up. Can I move on?
Yes.
Okay. Opportunity area 3, this is where we made the big change in terms of having City Hall in the main school building, and the event center in the rec building. And as you can see, we're proposing a parking garage, a parking structure there. We estimate that it will hold around 460 parking spaces, 3 levels. So all of your event, shopping, residential, additional parking should fit in that. And it is within 1/3 of a mile from all of your downtown. So it's a nice walkable location. That's the big change. So we've also further rendered the Cypress Avenue connection, which gives it direct access to the lakefront park. We're proposing a small marina building in the Sunrise Park. So all of this is pretty much the same, except the big change having City Hall right in the middle.
The marina is the existing marina set, it's not additional or new, right?
It is an improved, yes, it is an
The
additional.
marina itself is an additional marina?
No, the marina building,
No, I'm talking about marina building for the marina that it's for,
Yeah.
is the existing docks that are out there on the water.
correct, yes, it's existing.
You're gonna be pretty big, Commissioner Banks.
Actually, could happen. I think that.
Okay, nobody's talking into their mics. I can't hear.
I can hear,
Okay, but
so,
you're down that way. And are we being recorded?
yes.
Okay. So, Mayor, I have a question about this page.
Yes.
Okay, wait a minute. When we go up to the property on the part of the middle school property that's on Central Avenue, where you're showing retail and parking in the middle there. So is that retail and parking in the parking garage?
Yes, That's the parking
The
garage.
yellow is the retail and the gray is the parking garage.
That front's right on Central, and then, I'm just having a little problem visualizing this, so that's Park Avenue on the east side of where it says retail and parking.
Yes,
Okay,
where there's current bus parking there now.
got it, okay, and then we have the homes. So in that block where it says retail and parking, isn't there currently, like a drainage swale, a holding pond?
Yes,
There is,
Okay, so what are we gonna do about that?
well, to accommodate it,
Yeah.
you could go underground or, part of, also in the plan you'll see is a stormwater master plan.
Okay, I haven't gotten that far.
But generally speaking, you need to hold it on site, so probably.
Right, that's-
right, there's many solutions to that.
Yeah.
You can,
And parking garages can be designed with underground stormwater. We do it quite often.
And this is, remember when we talked about it before, how you have that frontage, you have the retail frontage in here, so when you're driving down there, you don't see that parking, it's tucked back.
Right. And then, so my other question about this is, we had a couple, at least one, tour of the Miller Middle School site that the public was invited to, and there was a lot of discussion. Some people suggested that where we have retail and parking, that some of that might be appropriate for residential.
right,
And so did you specifically exclude residential because you felt that it was not right for the area?
so the yellow buildings wrapping around that parking structure will
Right,
be retail on the bottom and residential on the top.
You have
Oh,
mixed
okay.
use.
It's mixed use.
okay, so this is two-story. Got it.
Two, or preferably three. So within the downtown area, it's three. That's
Okay,
what we're-
subject to the 35-foot limit?
Well-
It would fit within 35 foot limit. And if not, we need to change.
We need to change the code. I was gonna say that, because I think more acceptable standard would be like 50 feet for,
I think we tweaked it in our land development code update already.
And then I see that you have the townhomes and condos where that, health building,
yes,
the smaller health building is there, that would be replaced with townhomes and
So-
condos, which is residential.
yeah, it's not, multi-story, it's, low rise.
Yeah.
One or two stories, but it's a critical component, and I think, I'm just coming off of this conference that I attended. It's really critical to include this residential in order to attract any kind of investor interest in this.
Yeah.
So as much as you want to develop the downtown, if these sites can be packaged into a deal, they have a critical mass that they need to reach 200 units or 250 units in order for them to give you quality development. So that's where that kind of deal making happens. So you want to have that option in your back pocket, not only as a means of attracting folks, but it actually activates your downtown. You have people with disposable income on the waterfront, enjoying that lifestyle. It's probably a second home or a third home for someone, and coming in, not full-time resident, but it's a demographic with higher disposable income that you want to use to improve your economic
Well,
development.
I'm not complaining, just,
Yeah,
what I see here, I kind of like the package really.
yeah,
Yeah, and this also shows us, to reiterate, we have public access to that new waterfront. That'll be something we've been negotiating with
yes.
the developer.
So a couple of renders that shows the parking garage and the residential, so it's 3 stories, proposed retail and residential. And the Cypress Avenue crosswalk connection. I may move on to area 4.
I did notice back here,
Yeah.
I just wrote, is you have here the event center, and it looks like you have the gymnasium and the auditorium, but the auditorium is not marked. And both of those buildings, except the auditorium directly behind the event center, and then the lunchroom right behind the city hall.
Right.
So you might want to make note of that, just from the public perspective, to make sure that they know we're acknowledging there's an auditorium there. Because that really is the gymnasium, the event center that you have in
Yeah,
there.
it is.
That's really the gymnasium, and then that's the auditorium is where, what's the auditorium?
So on that, if I may, I know
Yeah.
it's not, I think when you get to the point, that whole site has to be master planned.
Uh-huh.
So the way I'm seeing it is, it's connected by walkways, it'll be a major event center and a minor event center. It'll be performing arts versus, I think it just has to be.
I understand, I figured that's what you were doing when you
Yeah.
said event center, but
Yeah.
it's just so that there's, from the
Yeah.
general public, when they see that there's some security there.
Yeah.
That you acknowledge what's there.
So that the building's not being replaced.
Yes,
It's-
exactly, exactly.
That's a very nice auditorium. I mean, it's got great bones, historic structure, very nice.
And a great, gymnasium too, so, okay, are we ready to?
Opportunity area 4. So this is the area that we made the most changes. We changed all of the residential from 2 and 3 story mixed-use buildings to either single-family residential or townhomes. So it brings the capacity down significantly in terms of the actual units. The waterfront is going to be improved again, like Grand Rondo Drive and the walkways within the park, within Lake Stella Park, will complement the residential, improved residential along this area. So. Okay.
The big changes there is the infrastructure, the sidewalk,
Yes,
intersection treatments,
which is shown here.
it should show that. And frankly, encouraging those vacant lots, those owners to build a house and get those, that neighborhood filled in
Yeah, I think somebody just vacant property.
a lot.
Yes.
A lot of,
Some of them I know they're waiting to retire, they're gonna build a retirement home.
y'all think that we look in and find some of that ourselves for the city?
Acquire those lots,
Some of them,
we can certainly look into that.
Well, and if I could just, so let me go back to this. So which, I'm having trouble, page 41, the red square. How many streets does that take in? Does that go all the way up to Summit?
That's the general area, but if you look at page 42, we're mainly focusing on the waterfront lots.
Okay, because, you were proposing the multifamily,
Right.
right on East Grand Rondo, but actually the streets in back of there, have, I guess, significant dilapidated housing that is in need of, upgrading, refurbishing. I mean, it seems to me that the help for that area, some of that area is historic. We've got the 2 historic churches and the Newman Lodge. And then we have quite a few small houses. Some are part of the historic district and some aren't contributing structures. But if we're talking about upgrading our housing, those streets, Cedar Street and North Main Street, maybe whatever is included in there, that area needs some help. We got vacant lots on
Grand Mountain.
Cedar Street. Well, in addition to Grand Mondo, we have vacant lots on Cedar Street. On Cedar Street, there's the old Sackett's, store, Market, Commissioner Banks. I mean, that's just a couple of walls. It doesn't look good, but when you're talking about activating an area, that could be housing.
Well, I noted Commissioner Banks' item of look into acquiring lots within that area. We could also develop a housing grant program, housing rehabilitation grant program, and it's funded each year. See how many housing projects we can do distinct from our commercial projects. So we can have that as a strategy. I mean,
Yes, and, Noe mentioned, obviously, we need to have people with enough disposable income. I mean, if you look at our SES over the years, I think it's gone down. So I'll wait
We have
till
to
we
take
get to
into
the end.
consideration, there's a lot of those houses right there on Cedar are currently occupied. And so we
Some
have to
are.
be careful, I know some of them aren't, but a lot of them, a lot of
Somebody owns them.
somebody owns them, so we
They're all
have to.
privately owned.
Yeah,
And you
so-
have to convince them, what you wanna do.
Well, some of them need assistance for refurbishment, and some of them are vacant lots. Nobody's living in the vacant lots, and some of the houses, I don't think anybody is living in. So,
But all I'm saying, Commissioner, is they are owned by private people. We have contacted private people to see if we could buy them. We've got to know, most generally speaking. And
wait, who's we? The city?
no, me and my partner, okay, to buy some of those,
Personally,
yes, personally.
not from, okay.
Not from the
That's
city.
just to make
No,
sure.
I don't buy for the city, okay, I buy for myself.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to get on the right way. Okay.
And the answer most generally is no, these places are not for sale. And a lot of them are in trusts, a lot of them are, passed down, family to family. And people wanna hang on to them, and I understand that logic. It kind of upsets me because I want a piece of property, but
well,
I
the grant
understand their
program,
logic.
we could address that with a grant program. Offering a grant.
But I'm
I
talking
think
about I'm talking about two separate issues here. I'm not talking about removing people from properties that they occupy.
Well, neither am I.
Right, okay, so we're telling them that they have to sell out, but there's two things you can do. We've talked about a lot of homes in this city need refurbishment, and that somehow we're not accessing grant programs, and this is more than in this area.
I'm gonna, before we get further, I just wanna say, we're in the weeds now.
Yeah, we.
Okay.
Because we're right now, this is focusing on Grand Rondo. So this is Grand Rondo, you're asking to step off into the neighborhood right behind Grand Rondo, is that correct? But right now, you're asking us to focus on Grand Rondo, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And
Okay, so I wanna bring this back, and then when we get into that, and Commissioner DeVito, then let's go into what you're talking about with some of these refurbishing and redoing some of
Okay,
these.
so I guess what I'm suggesting is that in addition to the waterfront part, we need to address, because the places I'm talking about are in the area. I'm saying we're overlooking the area that needs help.
Is there a way to show more of that map and just say,
Yeah.
refurbishment grants?
yes, I agree with what you said, and I think we can include that in the implementation strategy as a housing refurbishment grant, and then we can expand that.
I think we
Yeah.
capture it.
We can report this on this page,
Okay.
okay? All right.
And I do wanna say this, that I think we all need to keep in mind, as everybody says, we need to acquire, we need to acquire, we need to acquire. Everything the city acquires, you're taking it off the tax rolls. And so that's just something as we move forward, commissioners, just keep that in mind, that to acquire certain things, and when you acquire it, you also have to maintain it. And we are already stressed now with being able to maintain, so I'm just, as we go forward, keep that in mind.
I also think if the context for the acquisition is, we're willing to give this to somebody,
Yeah.
they'll build what we want precisely, we'll make a deal, then we get a
And
taxable,
we could do that, and-
prove property is valuable and so forth.
but we have to
If
have
that's
a
the
plan.
context, yeah.
If that's the context, if that's the plan we have, but not to just acquire and hold on so that we have more property.
Yes,
No,
that
we can't,
agree,
we
Mayor,
can't
right?
sell the property we have. Right.
Agree, and I think we've captured that sentiment in the implementation plan. It's about marketing and promoting those areas, especially those you've acquired and those you plan to acquire, then you have a plan to do that. Area 5, so which is the north area. So both area 5 and 6, what I'll just say is, just off the cuff, we were focusing on downtown. Our charge was to focus on downtown. But in the initial stages, we included both of these areas because we felt the opportunity to kind of improve your economic development, to support the downtown activities by having quality retail and housing. So that's why these two areas are when we looked at the whole context of the city and the connections and everything. So that's why we focused on these areas. The big changes really are, you asked us to look at the area south of Grove Avenue on page 45. So we understand that there's now some interest with McDonald's coming in. So there's a retail frontage, but behind it, we're proposing townhomes, condominiums, that can add more residential units to your area. It's got some spectacular elevation and views, so capitalizing on all of that. Stormwater retention will be a major factor, and it will kind of eat up quite a bit of your land. It actually offers about 400 plus residential units. So to someone coming in to invest in the city, this is a sizable project. And, back to the discussion on where you want to be in terms of population and how you want to improve the downtown and the quality of life, your parks and recreation, everything. It all kinds of merges and tells a good story. This is also in the context of possible new development happening in Walata, offering an alternative urban living for people that will be moving there because of the employment. So we're positioning ourselves ahead of the curve, trying to attract this investment, trying to attract new people coming to the area. So that's that.
So Noy, since later we referenced the linear park again, is that something we should denote on this map?
Yeah.
It runs right through the whole, nearly the length of it. Actually, the length of it. That's actually, I think, right-of-way conservation for the expansion of US, the highway. So someday it'll be gone.
Yeah. But I think having that in there would put you in a good position to negotiate with the DOT, because the linear park over there is really, they have more right of way in that area than the other parts of the city. So
Yeah.
I think it's probably a good negotiation.
Okay, Mayor, what linear park and what page are you on, Charles?
Page 45,
Okay,
the trail is already a pre-existing trail. It's a very wide swath of land. It's technically, we don't call it a park, but they're referring to it as a linear park.
you're talking about the wide sidewalk that runs
Well, and the
along
land.
17.
And the land between the highway and the trail.
Okay,
It's a huge swath, and we keep
Yeah.
mowed, and there's landscaping in there, and there's beds there that we're gonna
Right.
improve, plant beds, so this is what they're suggesting, is let's delineate that as a linear park, and one of our strategies is to actually maybe enhance that a little bit in time, with better landscaping
And even,
Hardscape.
yeah,
hardscaping, places to sit down when you're out there.
Yeah. right. And exercise maybe like what we do on like Stellar Trail, maybe some elements of it on this. So it just offers a little more active lifestyle to those residents that are living there. And it just provides more proximity for all of these folks along the strip to a park. Because, so it is a win-win because we saw the land available and the existing infrastructure.
Would you be able to shade a little bit?
Yes, we can.
That's
enhance
important, yeah, it's an important concept.
that. We can enhance it, yes.
So we're on page 46 now? No.
46, nothing much to be said here. It's more or less the same from previous. We added the building, I guess, from previously. Your comment was, can we show the new infill building, or the yellow building on the right on the bottom picture? So we've added that. So it would actually create more visibility of a building along Summit Street as opposed to a big parking lot. So that was the idea here. If I move on to opportunity area 6, that's the last one on Junction Road, that whole area. So you've asked us to reflect the RV park drawing, so we've included that drawing in that sketch on page 48. We actually see that the building on the top has been painted. No.
They're gonna put a store in there,
Nice,
convenience store.
yeah. So, we'll take a new picture, we'll add that in there.
Can we go back to 47?
Yes,
And this was something that I know I commented at the last time, is we've got pictures in here that really to me don't necessarily represent a vision that Crescent City's looking at. We've got Charles City,
Okay.
welcomes you, can we just?
yeah,
But
sorry.
Crescent City welcomes you, something in
Yeah.
there that makes it look like Crescent City. The one down the gateway, that looks to me kind of like, going into Kissimmee downtown, is that Kissimmee or St. Cloud downtown?
Yeah, those are just reference images.
Yeah,
I know,
but-
I know they're referencing images, but you had such good visuals that we've been able to look at, that just to have something that's a little more indicative of
Well,
what.
each section has those, did you notice that?
Yeah.
It's this one, right?
I see that.
Yeah, I think that, just that one, and I
That Charles,
apologize.
yeah, that
We
Charles
overlooked
City
that.
bothers me.
Well, I apologize.
Yeah.
That comment was.
Change that to
overlooked.
Michelle.
No, definitely don't change that to
Just,
Michelle.
just one L.
Just one L, but if you do that, it's one L, Michelle, one L. But just Crescent City, I just think
Yes,
that if
yes.
we're looking at this, let's do Crescent City. if we
Yes,
can.
yes.
And I know it's a
Apologize for that.
reference picture, I get that,
Apologize for that. I recall the
Mhm.
comment. So we've included the drawing, we've got all the big ones, the big comments. So we've included the RV park drawing and, again, made some amends to the design on the left side. One of your comments on page 48 was having an entrance to the gas station from Summit Street, which we show there. And then the gateway feature, that's the entry to your town, which is on the top picture and on the bottom picture. We've used your signage from the branding that you did with Modro, and we've kind of, obviously the sign has to be designed, but at least it's a starting point saying that that's your entrance to the town. And you have a gas station, but let's have a good gas station. Yeah.
Okay.
This is a new section, page 50. This is recommendations based on discussions with DOT and everything else that's in the memo to them. We didn't add that memo in the appendix, but Charles, I'm thinking we will add that discussion, so it's on the record as part of the plan in the appendix. The meeting notes that we had with them and the subsequent discussion points. The second letter, if you recall, has the exact reference to their study saying that they will look at additional crosswalks in the central area, so it's actually a good reference point. So we will add that. And then the statement of reducing the speed as well. We pulled out the activated alley improvements just to give some inspiration.
Page 51.
Page 51. Okay. And none of it is, most of the master plan really talks about the buildings and the built environment, the redevelopment and mixed use. But we want to recognize that all of this is in tandem with the activities, the events, the promotions. So we included that here. There's been some changes made and we've made those changes, Charles. And obviously this is a, evolving list, a growing list. And this section you haven't seen, or at least some of it, chapter 5, page 53 to 57. It's actually an introduction to what regulatory changes in your comp plan and land development code. We're not, it's not a full-on kind of change recommendations, but at least it is highlighting some of the big steps that you need to take in order to make the master plan consistent with your comp plan and land development codes. So we have that.
Oh, wait a minute. On page 54, if I could just raise a question.
Yes.
I fully agree with the sentiment that's expressed on page 54, the third paragraph down.
Yeah.
That starts with historical architectural standards and design requirements for all areas in the city, including downtown, the historic district, the commercial quarter, and the waterfront are covered under the city's ordinance. But we have to keep in mind, unfortunately, I believe the legislature has preempted our ability to have architectural and design standards. So if it's not in a, it's my understanding, it's not in a CRA and it's not in a historic district, then we can't have any standards.
Isn't that just for housing?
Yes, but are we talking about housing or just commercial?
Just code.
Just code, just commercial code?
Yeah.
But our code applies to everything.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
talking about the entire code. Well, that's the other thing, like if you want to actually make it as an overlay or any other additional standards as part of your code, you can.
Right, but I'm just saying, Charles, I'm not sure about that, whether we can apply it to commercial. I don't know. But it's a little bit, whatever is expressed in paragraph 3, that's great.
We have to note that it's commercial standards citywide.
But-
Residential can only occur in a CRA, a historic district, HOA, those kind of subdivisions.
Yeah, there's been a recent limitation, so, and you're right, maybe if there's more we could do locally, then we would need to do that. Okay, thank you. Just want to bring that up as a sad limitation.
So, thank you. So, page 55, so CRA plan update recommendations. This section is really a precursor to the full update that Charles is working on with your work program and the CRA plan update. We shared some ideas back and forth, and essentially what we're trying to do is take all of the recommendations and actions in the plan and kind of put it in a framework so that the CRA can adopt an updated CRA plan and then translate into a work plan. So essentially what we're doing is taking a 4-point approach, which is what the Main Street offers: economic development, design, promotion and outreach, and then categorizing all the plan improvements from the master plan on all of the 6 opportunity areas, the connections, the pedestrian improvements, citywide, multimodal golf, bike ped, golf cart, all of that, and categorizing them into actionable items under these. Now, this is not the full update. There's a separate document that Charles is working on, which has that, but it's consistent with that. And from this kind of overall guidance, this guidance kind of establishes the thinking on each one of these topics. And then from this, there will be like clear actions, which will be part of the CRA plan. Your previous CRA plan was kind of loose and didn't have much, it was more aspirational rather than having tangible action. So this will get you there. And, we'll work back and forth a little bit between us and Charles to kind of make sure that they both say the same thing.
Now, won't the implementation strategy be very much the redevelopment plan, in essence, the steps?
Yes and no, because those actions are outside the redevelopment plan, like, say, for example, citywide stormwater, those are not part of the CRA. So, and then some, maybe 80%, I'd say, but there's some other actions that may not be part of it, like the code update, that's citywide.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do an addendum or appendix?
Yeah, there'll be like a letter or a memo
Be attached to this.
attached to this, which will build off on this and have some more actions that Charles is working through, and then we'll kind of put that together as well. So that will be separate, because that in itself is another plan, it's another document, so
Yeah.
I think if we include that here, we'll get confused, people will confuse, what is what, this is a visionary aspirational document. The last chapter on page 58 is the implementation plan. It's totally new content, but the subject matter is all of the previous points. So the subject matter is not new, but this chapter is new. What we've done is taken all these projects or made them into actual projects. So if you look in page 59, for example, we've categorized them into physical and infrastructure improvements, so those actual projects, and then program and policy improvements and collaborations. So those are the three categories of action items that you want to take. And then if you look at this, the way this is formatted, under the first category, physical infrastructure, we have the actual action and a brief summary of what that action is, and a timeline. So you can establish some KPIs or performance indicators against those timelines, who the responsible parties are, costs. So where there are tangible costs, we express that. And granted, this is all at a high planning level. So the accuracy is at a planning level plus minus 30–40%. Once you detail design these Central Avenue improvements, you'll get a more accurate cost. And then possible grants and funding sources for each of those actions. So, so if I want to just pick one, the second one, Central Avenue improvements, the actual brief of that project is you have close to 2,000 square linear foot of streetscape that you want to design. The city and FDOT is included because they have LAC grants that you can actually tap into and use for those improvements, and especially that it's connected to some street. You can actually get it on the MPO's work program, and if they're willing to fund that. Generally, the cost. So this is based on the FDOT's manual. It's about 7.5 million per mile. That's the rough estimate. So you don't have a full mile, you're about 0.4 mile. So you're looking at $3 or $4 million.
Does that include underground?
No, it does not include underground utilities. Possible funding sources, I've listed a few there. There's a new grant that's really important. It's the Reconnecting Communities grant. It's a tough one to get, but if you get it, it's really good. But with all grants, the more you invest in it, the more your likelihood of winning it is. There was a whole session yesterday on grants.
Now, that $7.5 million is to rip out the existing streetscape and put in a brand new one, is that?
For a full mile. So,
For a full mile.
yeah, so you're probably 2,000 linear foot from end to end, which is about 40.4 miles. So you're looking at 3 million, 4 million cost. So it's a complete redo.
But if we just went through and bricked all the grass areas, did the hardscape improvements to the existing street curb,
Yeah.
left all that in place, it would be a fraction of that.
That'll be a fraction of that. So this is for a complete redo, and and part of it, and we don't know what it will be. If you're going to have developers, deal with those two blocks, maybe that's part of the developer's agreement with them to kind of finish off those streets, to those segments.
Is there, with this implementation, can we not put this in kind of a timeline order? Just so that we know what we need to accomplish in these next 3 years.
Okay.
You see, because it goes 0, 3, and then jumps to 4 to 7, and then we go back to 0, 3.
Okay. Do you still want it categorized by physical and infrastructure, the three?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you categorize it differently than in the timeline.
Yeah, it's categorized by the physical infrastructure, not the timeline. Can we do a separate one for the timeline? I mean, is there some way to do it to where?
I think what I'm looking at, maybe I'm just seeing it different, but you're kind of saying, this is what we should look at first, this is what we should look at second. this is what we should look at third. And it goes on and on and on with your recommendations for, and these are the timelines. Who knows what the timeline's really gonna be, but,
Yeah,
and
It's
you
not
just,
quite, it's not quite what we're doing yet.
yeah, that's what I mean.
It's not one, the third one is not the third thing we should approach.
Right.
That's
So
in
if
years
it's
4
not,
to 7, yeah.
if that's not the case.
Yeah.
yeah. So I get your point. I think maybe we can recategorize it, but let me look at,
Because if somebody comes in behind us and they're
Right.
looking from a budgetary standpoint,
yeah,
and they're saying, okay, this is where we are, this is what needs to be accomplished within that next budget year.
right. I'll try and let's see how we can make it.
I mean, I don't know, Charles, from a city manager standpoint, Charles, what are your thoughts on that?
Say it again.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You don't listen.
How this could be.
You're talking about a private conversation. What's your point?
How would this work, I mean, from you looking at this, do you see it that it would be helpful if it was more on a timeline schedule and not a, action, physical and infrastructure schedule?
Yeah, even if it's divided into the physical and structural program policy and collaborative, we did like sets of those. So in years 1, 0 to 3, these are all the things in those 3 areas that need to occur. And then years 4 to 7, these items are down here. And I've been looking at this and trying to break some of them down and in more detail and move, like, we have in here the updated redevelopment plan, which is this action.
Yeah.
So I moved that in years 4 to 7, saying, update the plan again in years 6 or 7, yeah, as an action, because once this is adopted, that item's done, so I wouldn't have it on the list as an example.
So that's the second one. That's the update for later.
It would go into years 4 to 7, policy and program, update the redevelopment plan in years 6 or 7, so,
And you've got ongoing, so that's.
I agree, Mayor. I think we'll arrange it that way. I think it'll just make more sense. But we'll keep the 3 categories and so it's separate, like the physical infrastructure, 0 to, chronological order. And while you were saying this, maybe what we'll try and do is like a simple 1-page graphic that has just the lines. So it's easier to read. So you just have it's like the, what do you call that? A snapshot view on the top and then the details are later. So we'll try and we'll improve the presentation of this.
Commissioner DeVito, did you have to say, did you want to?
I do, and your question about timelines and the organization of this is a lot of work, thank you. Just conceptualizing what needs to be a to-do list is a tall order. The first question, Mayor, Commissioners, and City Manager, that came to my mind when I looked at these new pages and implementation strategy was, isn't this a lot of tall order for our small city to accomplish? And do we need to set some priorities as to what we would do first, what we would focus on, as what contributes most to our economic vitality? Certainly that the whole Miller School property issue would seem to me to be kind of first. And I know I was involved in a plan for my 6,000 population neighborhood in Tampa, and we did an implementation plan, and we had priorities, and that was helpful. I'm just concerned that, we not have too large a laundry list for us to do without having a roadmap as to where we start.
well, this is a priority list, so if you.
Like, is it a doable priority list?
Well, you may need to look it over. So you may say, look, this is too much to do in the year 0 to 3. Let's push this half to 4 to 7. Because we can't take all that on. I think it'd be important though, if you look at a lot of it, it's kind of, I think a lot of them require consulting services. So we have someone doing it for us. And so we can check that box. If it doesn't fill our plate, they bring back the result, like design the parking structure or stormwater master plan. We hire somebody to do that, takes the better part of a year probably, But so it's ongoing while we're on other things on the list. So before we push things to years 4 and 7, I'd look at kind of, is it really us doing it, or we just kick it off and it occurs?
Okay, but so it seems to me that you're the best one to advise us on what is doable, both for our staff and financial resources. And even if we hire someone to do it for us, we still have to identify a way to pay them.
And I'm massaging that,
Okay.
I'm making a draft, because at the same time, I'm working on our capital improvements 5-year plan. So I'm trying to figure out how much money, so all these projects will go into that capital improvement plan as well. And if it's already full, that might influence what we put on our plate in this implementation. I gotta balance those out. So,
When I'm just thinking, the things we should focus on, it seems to me, and obviously the rest of the commission has to weigh in, are things that move the economic, move our economic status forward. And then some of these things, I think, support other things to some extent. So anyway, that was what I was thinking of in terms of managing this to-do list. It's certainly better than what we have for our current CRA plan, because that goes on for pages and pages. And there's not priorities, and that has been a drawback, just to have a, very long narrative. This is broken down into discernible steps.
I think as a commission, maybe we can move forward, and take this as a homework project, okay, and we can come up with what you feel priorities are, Michelle, et cetera. And then come back and discuss it at some point as to how we bring it.
And some of these are not necessarily that you have to do one or the other, because some of them are, like Charles was saying, they work together. And oftentimes you put in 20 goals or 20 things you want to accomplish, and then you go through and say, and this what, then you prioritize them that way, so.
I think Commissioner, we brought a good point. We need to find out where we gonna start. How we gonna get there. The whole thing. If we're gonna be able to get there, where we gonna start at?
Well, that's what I said.
Right, and so-
Sit down,
And,
see where we wanna start.
Yeah.
She may wanna start someplace different than where you might wanna start.
right,
So put our priorities down, and then come together, and you can find, let's say we put 10 priorities down, we
Right.
find 5 of them that are the same,
same,
and then
right.
there's 5 that we're probably gonna differ.
And
A lot of it hinges on middle school. A lot right there, so
That's a big one.
that's a big.
Right, and, somebody told me, I call City Hall and nobody answers, and I'm like, well, there's not that many people there to answer the phone, and if, they'll call you back if they're talking to another person, or they're making copies, or looking something up, we're a small shop. So I'm just saying, we gotta make sure we organize the work so that we can really do it, and it gets us where we want to go. And I think the mayor had a point, some of these things, could be grouped, because they're really part of, one goal or project, and they support each other. So, but I think Commissioner Burton has great thought, we need to take this home and study it.
And we need to look at too, the estimated cost. So
Right.
that's gonna play into it too, where we are,
Just get realistic.
be realistic with it.
And, because that was a very eye-opening grant workshop that we had, where we found out, what we could get without upfront money and what we can't.
Like cities signage and wayfinding, that's something that we're past due on that. We should have already had that in.
Well,
That's something we should, so that's, we need to get that, right there to me at the beginning. Let's tell people where they're coming into.
Do you have more than one?
No.
So those are just those things that. Sure.
Mayor, before we close, I had some I guess, questions for the commission and also for the delay. Just whenever, I don't know where we are, but
Well,
we're
let's
ready.
see where they are, let's see where they are.
Yeah, and I just wanted to just continue on just a little bit on the implementation plan. If I may bring your attention to page 61, opportunity area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I agree with everything all of you said in terms, especially prioritizing actions. So, for example, the opportunity area 1 and 3, there's a task, I think, which is probably needed in trying to solicit and find those partners that we can actually get on board. So,
I'm sorry, what page should I be on?
page 61,
61.
yeah.
16.
So it doesn't take, I mean, obviously it takes a little bit of a chance to find that right partner, find that, whether it's Colliers or I told you about Mosaic, whoever that is, and start that discussion. But then that sets you on a path for economic development, and you have, some kind of activity going on in parallel to everything else that's going on. So a lot of it is written as actions that take staff time, and a lot of it is also hard physical improvements that actually cost things, which in a way will be realized once you have more rooftops, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the low hanging fruit, the
Yeah.
obvious
The signage,
wayfinding,
Yeah.
that's
entry features,
easy.
that stuff we can.
Check offs.
These are the priorities. If you were to ask our advice, it would be like, just grab the bull by the horns. These are the big priorities. Like, what are you going to do about the middle school side? Who do we have as a partner who can we engage with? Because there's only so much in terms of grants and things that, freebies that we can get, and you really need to work it out. And also, we know for sure, because we do a lot of grants as well, they will back you if you're on a winning side. Like if you have other people vouching for you, like the DOT, then the federal government will come and say, okay, maybe, we can do safe routes to schools or connected communities here because there's something happening here. And everybody wants to be on the winning side. That's
And that's a concern that that's a concern that I have with the, a lot of people say, oh, we can do it, we can get grants, you can do it with grants, you can do it with grants, you can do it with grants. And I think with whatever we decide to do, in many cases, we need to say, maybe we can get grants, but we also have to look at how we have to be able to do this if we can't get those grants. And if it's doable, if we can't get those grants, because we all know that grant money is not as easy to come by as it sounds. We've been asking for $2 million just for our fire station to make it where it needs to be for 2 years. They've come back to us and now we're hoping to get $1 million, so now we've got to figure out what we're gonna do, how we're gonna make that work. So, I think with some of this, that's something we have to take into consideration.
And a lot of them require matching funds,
And
so.
they require matching funds, so it's not like they're just handing us out money,
Right.
they're gonna hand us out money.
Right.
Just like they're not gonna necessarily hand us out money when we've got a functioning city hall here to move our city hall somewhere else. We've got to figure that out.
So the only one that does not have a matching requirement is the Brownfields grant, which I put it in here.
That's all.
So we should consider that, I think, especially those few sites that are possible. You can't do brownfield grant for a government-owned property, so it's for private property. But consider that because that will give you some more leverage and negotiation with.
The south end of town, we probably have opportunities down there for the brownfield grants. All of that down there where the car dealership was, with Valera, with the old gas
That's all
station
we
is
have.
Yeah. And, so both sides of the road there, you can look at, and plus like what you said down here as well.
Yeah, even though it's not contaminated now, the perception of contamination is enough for you to apply, and you may not get it in the first cycle. So we work across the country on these, and some of it takes like 2-3 applications, and then you get one in. Then you start like the discussion with developers, say, hey, we can match this. And one of the projects that they talked yesterday on that conference was they had 13 different grants supporting this one project. It's a long list, but then more people will jump on the bandwagon. But Charles, you want to show something?
Yeah, I want to show, I'm working on the implementation, and it was an important distinction you made. This strategy will be citywide, whereas our redevelopment plan is only in the CRA can only pay for things in the redevelopment plan. So we can put entry feature on the north and on the south if it's
Within the CRA.
within the CRA,
Right.
but not out 308. But it'll be, an implementation strategy would be to put an entry feature out 308. So let me see if I can pull it up.
I've got to relook at it again inside that context of a separate redevelopment plan.
And I'll open it up, and Charles is done, I can't open it up for public comment if, I don't know, Mr. Poltowski, if you have anything that you would like to add, and then we can open it up for the commissioners for final discussion.
In other words, you can. Okay.
When he's done, yes, when he's done. Thank you.
Charles, please don't trip over that cord, that looked a little scary.
I rushed this out this morning.
Did you send this to BJ?
Not yet.
Okay.
See on screen. So what I did was, it's a reorganization of I think I got everything you had in there. And then I added more things that were in my head. I'm like, what do we do?
Yeah.
Kind of look. So the Central Avenue, I think particularly in years 0 to 3, we can continue the brick pavers. You know, those sections we've been doing, we can continue that in little bites. The entry features, I broke that out into separate downtown entry. There's a city entry, downtown entry, the wayfinding. I put that in here because I know the design committee is working on that already. And that would be in all, and I grouped by years 0 to 3, and then I put which district, so this would be more the redevelopment plan. The traffic wayfinding, the pedestrian wayfinding, which is, you know, the shops, like we used to have a sign out here that showed where the curves was down this way and the salon was this way. I know, again, design's working on that. That alley activation, I actually broke that into 2 phases. First, phase 1 we could do right away. It was murals and mosaics and some lighting and some treatments to make the alley behind here, and we could do events in there. The wall over by the car repair, we could put art on that wall. We could begin as a phase 1. Phase 2 would be in years 4 to 7, where we redevelop this building and we redevelop our parking lots. The facade improvements is just renderings. Go ahead and commission more renderings to show our property owners, this is how cool your building can look with these changes. And at the same time, I think about how we fix down there by the convenience store in the auto parts, is actually hire a landscape architect to design those parking lots with greenery and beds and then go back and say, and will we have a grant program for that? And how can we begin installing this, like, just to really make it happen? We also do need a housing improvement grant. We need a special grant. And we fund housing improvements every year in the 3 districts. There aren't many houses in the north and south. The north has some significant challenges that need grants. The others not so much, aren't many houses.
This area right here could benefit.
Yeah, exactly. The central has a area could benefit. The paved dirt road, that's a holdover. There's one dirt road in the North CRA. It runs along Winn-Dixie. It's Oakwood. It's in our plan we're applying for MSCOP grants. So the North CRA could provide some funding to get that little piece, and that would check that box. Stormwater master plan is a citywide thing. It used to be in our comp plan, but we took it, supposed to have it done in 2011. Then the safety improvements we talked about, that's an ongoing conversation and advocacy. So it's not really a one and done thing. And then I put all the opportunity area. Again, those are the developing pro formas is something that we'll do in other stuff. Well, we work with somebody to get that done. All the pro formas are there. And then under the middle school, that's actually already begun, established the SAC and a feasibility study. I separated that, you had those together. And then update the land development code. That won't be done by the time we adopt this, so I put it in there. Historic preservation plan, we actually need to, we've talked about that a little bit, to create one, so, and then events and programs, that was the same thing. You talked a little bit about economic development in that. This is more like the sort of that Main Street view of special events, bring people here. Collaborations and partnerships, I just reorganized a little bit, Florida Main Street and the Crescent City Downtown Partnership, the Fruitland Historical Society. And then I separated those out, whereas like the Concerned Citizens and the Women Civic Association, as sort of the voice of the African American community. The Mexican American community doesn't really have a voice other than we work with the restaurants to try to create those connections to all the the different groups in this city for culture, inclusion, arts, and so forth. And then Putnam Blueways and Trails, tourism, those things are right off the strategy. The TEC and the EDC and the Chamber, and then Bass Pro coordination. And then, but then years 4 to 7, these are things. This is the category where we push things we think it's too much. We're going to be real expensive. So the shared trail extensions, the Celebration Park. I think I pushed that to 4 to 7 because designing a whole new park, that's a big bite. We got a lot of things. That's one of the things to think about. Like we have a lot on our plate. Should we push that out to year 4 to 7? Designing the parking structure, and then the trail improvements, Lake Stella and US 17, and then alley activation phase 2. That's when we actually begin. We've moved out of here. We'll begin, doing construction on the alley. And then I already added I put in here purchase buildings parcels. Like if there's building that's just been sitting there, we're at year 4 now. Is it still sitting there? Maybe we should buy it. We'd have that discussion. And same thing with housing and lots. We can add that in. Like these lots are just sitting there facing the lake. Could we actually buy it and put it in the hands of a developer who will put a house on it, or we get it back? That's the deal. You build a house within 6 months, or we get it back. And then the programs and policies, I separated out stormwater because we have a master plan for water and wastewater, and we'll need to update that. But we don't have a stormwater plan, so I separate them out. And then I added the update redevelopment plan in year 6 or 7. And then these are just ongoing collaboration partnerships. We just continue to do that. But that's a draft. I'll keep massaging it and get your ideas. We'll add these new elements. My goal is when we're done, I told the mayor, we all drop dead the next day. Somebody knows what to do. Like it's in a plan and it makes sense. And there's nothing like, wonder what they were talking about when they were talking about that, so that's my goal. And then as Benoit mentioned, the redevelopment plan will be that language, enabling language, and the CRA centric. So wayfinding will show up again. Actually, wayfinding is always in the CRA, but the entry feature around 308 won't be in the redevelopment plan. It'll be in the implementation strategies though for the master plan. So I hope that's helped this year.
Yeah, very good.
If y'all are going to provide us a minute, and I'll just open it up for public comment. And then, open it up for public comment.
Hi, my name's Ted Laskowski. I don't live in the city. I live
Speaking to the mic, I'm sorry. Thank you.
about 100 yards outside of the city, unfortunately, but I'm caring about Christmas City. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think it's admirable that you have done this, and I think it's pretty cool. Great plan. My 2 cents as a former real estate developer is I think you get a lot of this done with free money by the developers. And I think it would be really neat to put together a third kind of a concept between what you guys have done and what Charles has done to kind of come up with a plan that says, here's an opportunity for a developer. Here's an opportunity for a developer. And what does that mean? Are there 200 units that a developer could build? Is there 15,000 or 30,000 square feet of commercial that a developer could participate in? And in that plan would come the monies that would come from those developers to subsidize a lot of this stuff. And I personally think a lot of what is being discussed, probably not like a master plan for underwater stormwater management, not that, but certainly the road improvements, certainly the sidewalk improvements, the trees, the trails are absolutely doable for developers to pay for. for the opportunity just to come in and build their 200 units, And with a comprehensive plan that's already, I'll say started, because what I'm envisioning is a plan that's specifically meant for developers, essentially. It's a third concept that is not here right now, but a third concept that shows what opportunities there are for developers. And there's a world out there of people dying to invest money. There's a lot of money in this world. And it's not me. I'm not the guy. But I just have experience in knowing that that's possible. And it's also possible to create as much excitement as you've already started creating here. I love Crescent City. I love the concept of the 2 lakes. I think that's a very, very sellable feature to the investment world. And not that, I don't know how many people want to have an aggressive change that could happen as what I'm saying. Maybe it's not that aggressive, but maybe it's done in piecemeal where everybody is satisfied that it's being done properly, being done right, being done controlled. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. And what we're doing right now, I know, I was in person on Friday night, and several people just out of the blue said something to me. I love what y'all are doing on Central Avenue with the brick and the flower pots, and it just, when I drive on Central Avenue now, it makes me happy. Makes me so much happy, it brings me back to when there was life on Central Avenue as we grew up.
Yeah,
And
so that's what it is.
so, it's those little things, though, those tangible things that
Yeah.
people can see, they can feel, it gives them that pride. Our medians, I know when we first came in, that was one of my biggest things that I harped on prior to, was our medians, and they were about to be taken over. We've redone our medians, and now when you drive through Crescent City, now sometimes I'll get a few little weeds in them, but it's a lot of upkeep. But our medians are something to be proud of, and I know when I go to other communities now, that's the first thing I look at is, oh my gosh, their medians are, they look awful. Somebody's not working on these medians, they don't understand that that's the perception of the community, and how much they're loving on their community. So I think with what we're doing so far, we are making some strides. So Commissioner DeVito, you said you had a couple of questions.
Well, I had a couple of questions from the last time this was presented, but one thing I want to say, it has nothing to do with this plan. That was brought to my attention. Someone connected to people who were proposing the donation to the dog park mentioned that they would like to have a ribbon cutting when it is done. So I said, please talk to the mayor and the city manager. But I said, I would mention it to the whole commission and make sure that we know that there's the idea of ribbon cutting, even though this thing is not yet designed yet.
Okay.
But back to the master plan, some concerns that I've had for quite a while, and I think they're still not answered, and this is something I think the whole commission needs to talk about. The assumption that we should hit a goal of 8,000 people in 20 years, that's an increase of 4 times, and it's about adding 300 residents a year. I'm not sure, to me, I think that's a value judgment. Other communities have discussed the pace and the size of growth that they want to have. We have not really done that. I think Benoit said that was just an assumption based on Florida's population growth. Because we have issues to consider, what do we really want to look like? Why are people building outside of town versus in town? Can our water and sewer sources support this? And just, what would that mean for the character of our community? And again, similarly, why was a certain number of retail square feet chosen? Is our retail gonna serve mainly Crescent City people? How wide will it be? And I know, when we're talking about attracting developers, I get a little bit nervous, when you talk about Bass Pro or whatever. If we want to have a thriving commercial and restaurant district, I think we need to think about who our customers are, what kind of housing we want, who do we want to attract here? I mean, what really is our character that we're going for? And we don't really have a statement of that. I think, in one of the initial planning and zoning commission meetings, Bob Shear asked the basic question that I don't know if it was ever answered. He said, what kind of community do we want to be? And, you know, do we, like, most communities have a basic statement. Do we want to be safe? Do we want to be, you know, family oriented? Do we want to be whatever? So I don't think it addresses that. And I think that as a commission and a community, we need to have a statement of what kind of plan we want to be. I mean, not plan, community we want to be. We know we said walkable, but the size of the community makes a big difference. So, and then, we've talked about opportunities for developers, as well. I don't know, we have a lot of lots, that need infill, where there are not people. And I think we need to consider strategies for infilling our lots.
Okay, I'm gonna, Commissioner Banks needs to be excused.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He has an eye doctor's appointment.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Banks. Drive safe.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Because he was good. So, and then,
You go to that page for the vision statement.
sorry, for our planners, one thing I noticed that's not in the plan, it talks about historic character being important, but I don't see anywhere in the plan that actually being mentioned that we have a historic district, that exists. I have not seen that. It would seem to me we would want to mention it. We have historic resources that exist outside the historic district. But it doesn't really mention that there is a historic district. I don't know.
I guess you could add that, and when you look at 28 in the legend, maybe that's
Can you zoom in
something.
on that? Can you zoom?
Yeah, it's actually,
That's our vision, right?
right.
Our vision statement.
Yeah, describes who we want to be.
So we didn't present all of this today, so
Yeah.
we jumped straight into, so we can focus on what's changed. So in the first 3 chapters of the plan, there's all of the stuff that we discussed at the previous meetings, including the vision, the history, and the context of what we did. If I, can I answer some of the questions? Yes, ma'am. So on the retail question, we didn't assume anything. What we did was we looked at specific properties within the opportunity areas. And if you see those buildings that are designed or placed in those opportunity areas, so let me show you an example. So for example, this one. So we actually placed these buildings based on prototypes that's available in the market, like here, like all of these buildings, right?
All the yellow.
All the yellow.
Okay,
So we place those buildings based on prototypes that are available in the market in terms of dimensions and what's available on the ground. And then we extrapolated areas out of it. So what we got out of it is what we've written here. So it's not from a preconceived, like I want to push this in here, but it's based on what your land can take.
right, but it seems to me there's a whole other level, which is, do we want to have flea markets? Do we want to have, I mean, who do we have a vision of being and what is economically,
We have a big
sustainable?
community all of them. I mean, we can have flea markets, and we can have retail, and we can have, I mean, all cities have all of it.
Well, we're kind of more of a town, and usually you have a market in mind. Right now, the direction we're going is, you know, I mean, what we have now, what we're getting is retail outlets that are aimed toward people of very low income and thrift shop. And we lost our 2 major banks. We lost the Bells outlet. So, I mean, it's just helpful, you know, when you're talking about your partners and your strategy, to have a vision of kind of who you want to be. So,
So, can I just?
Yeah.
Can you play my thing? I'm new to this area, really, you know, I've been here 6 years, 6, isn't it? 86.
Yeah.
So I've been here approximately 6 years. And when I first moved in here, a lot of people, what they kept reminding me of was what Crescent City once was. So I met our historian, Cherie, and, Cherie Register, which is the last name. But I met Cherie and we sat down one day and she said, this is what Crescent City used to be. Well, if you start looking through all the catalog stuff that she has, we had steamboats coming in, steamboats of people coming in. We had a big, I believe, hotel, okay, at one point on Central Avenue. Sprague House was very active. Bowling alley,
And bowling alley.
we had, you name it, it was here. This was a hub. And people that had lived there to kind of see this, and actually, like, believe your family used to come do shopping here from,
Well, I
Seriously.
went to school, yeah, right down the road, and this is where you bought your prom dresses, your trucks.
Yeah.
I mean, you went to the doctor here, you did, all of that was done
Was-
here.
was
back
down
in
here. I mean, we had, I guess, I saw a picture of an old, car dealership.
well, wait a minute,
You know.
just want to interject one thing. Neither Cherie nor anybody now living saw those steamboats. That was a whole different.
I'm
I
talking
know,
about the
she's
pictures
saying,
though.
I know,
Yeah.
she's saying back in the, long ago.
Yeah,
And that's
we
how
just
all
talked
of that
about-
fluency started here in
I
Crescent.
saw guys with a string of fish. My gosh, it was as long as this building, full of fish, okay? I said, I don't catch a fish when I go out there. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, every person that I've talked to that has lived through a lot of that, said they would like to see that come back. They'd like to see that life come back. And I believe the plans that we're putting in place right now will help us do that. Now, whether or not we get up to 8,000 people, I don't know, probably not. But so long as we get people coming in from Pearson and Willaca and, you know, all over to help our retail and help our city stay strong, I just think it's an important thing to do. So I think you've done a pretty good job.
Mayor, if I could add to that. So I'm very familiar with the history of Crescent City. I've been here since I was a baby, and my grandparents came here in 1939, and they were very active in the community, and they,
You lived here, you visited here. You
oh, I
visited
lived here part-time.
During the summers.
No, weekends, whatever, I only lived an hour away. This was my home. I have 2 Bibles from church, one from here. So my grandparents shared with me the history going back to people who had malaria. But what I'm trying to focus on is there are elements, and you've touched on some of them, that made the city or the town really successful at different times during different eras. It had different roles. And I've observed wherever I've lived in Florida, I lived in Tampa for 20 years, it helps to have a focus and a vision. Because one thing, you know, you can have people coming in, but if you completely skew your socioeconomic level and you don't have a mix, which is what Crescent City does not have now, then you're going to have a problem. So there are cities in Florida that are considering what are their goals? Do they want to be, you know, mainly residential? We've had people come to the commission or whatever on our board saying, well, we don't want to be just for old people. So it really helps to think what kind of businesses, what kind of residents will make us strong. One thing that has hurt us over the years is, at some point, the county decided that we were a good place for very low income housing. And while you need that, you can't have that being a overly significant part of your housing mix, because you will not have people with sufficient income to sustain your businesses. So you need to look at the whole mix. You need to have housing for everyone. And I think that's a discussion not just for us, but for the community. And I don't think we've really had that discussion yet. You know, how do we see ourselves in 20 years? How big do we want to be? And what do we want our primary and secondary focus to be as a community? I mean, some people say they want to be like, what's the place in Nassau County where everyone goes that has
Fernandina Beach.
Fernandina Beach? Some people say they want to be Fernandina Beach. Some people say they don't want to be Fernandina Beach. I mean, that's really a community value. So, but I particularly think having a size in mind and how we're going to zone and, look for development with that size in mind is very important.
Well, I think if you'll consider, if you look at the areas where we're talking about higher density residential, it's townhomes and condos with a lake view. I think, I don't think what we can do is call out demographics in a master plan that we want to attract. I think we want to make a community that's comfortable for everyone. So I think the vision statement, if you can go back to the vision statement, it captures it, and I think.
Can you read that? Yeah, I'm sorry.
I see it there, blurry.
So thriving old North Florida small town connected by lakes and trails, featuring diverse residential neighborhoods and historic districts, quality shopping, dining, and healthcare experiences, walkable downtown with delightful events and activities, good public facilities including schools, public facilities and waterfront parks, sound infrastructure and connectivity to destinations within and outside the town. So
We're already we're already in a lot of ways, we're already there. I mean, that's what we're living, a lot of that, some of
I
it
think
living
that
today.
captures.
It captures us,
Vision of what we want to be.
today.
Very good vision of what we want to do.
yeah. So, can I?
Yeah.
Oh, I think through the process, one thing we've figured out is everybody wants, they recognize that the city has been on a decline from the historic context. And when, I was thinking of it over the last few days, and, Crescent City was probably an ideal place to go maybe 100 years ago, where the other communities looked up to Crescent City as the destination. But then over the years, this has declined, and now the surrounding areas, the land and other cities are being looked up to, and we're down. So can we be at its rightful place? That's all, fill that gap. Can we get to that level where we were once, that percentage of the communities or the county's economy? It's just that now we're on this decline. So how do we get there? It's basically increasing your economic development aspirations. You want to have those extra housing units. You want to hit a equilibrium of housing and retail and jobs and everything, which is all captured in the plan. And so, I think when we do these planning projects, we have to be aspirational in terms of within reason, and we are, I believe we are. We haven't proposed any big developments that fully, say, leverage the live local, the new law where you can build any kind of density in anything. We haven't gone that way. We've taken fully on board the sentiments of the community, historic, low, small town, and then within that balance out a framework. In terms of the population growth, I think it's the market will determine that, but it's important to recognize where we are currently. So just in terms of density, we are 1,600 people, close to 1,700 people over 2 square miles, which is a low density. So purely on utilization, if you look at the other successful communities, so we're at 800 people per square mile, which is really low. Even if you look at Mount Dora or some of the other beacons of small town successful, they're double. They just double that. So they're in the region of 1,500, 1,600. DeLand is like 1,900, for example. So we don't want to be DeLand, but still, I think within the framework of our city, it's underutilized. Just there's a lot of land that's vacant. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. And then, in addition to that, we talked about, possible extension or expansion of the city to its right place. That would just add more opportunity for you in terms of having, funding that place that you want to have downtown. So with all that in consideration, with some quick mathematical calculations and extrapolations, it's very reasonable, with the right leadership and the right actions, very reasonable that you can be up to 10,000. We didn't even go there. And what 10,000 gets you is a bypass. So
That 8,000 number was including potential annexations, new
yes.
developments.
expansion.
Yeah, expansion.
Boundaries expanded.
So and this we have to be very careful, because one thing that hurt our downtown as well as other downtowns, and it's always a struggle, is, the building out on the highway. I mean, putting Miller Supermarket out where the Save A Lot is now, that hurt downtown. We've been, when you expand out, sometimes you don't help the center, you create a hole in the center. And it takes a strategy not to do that. That's why Main Street had to come into existence. So you have to be very careful. And the other thing we have, some of the vacant land is just unoccupied residential area inside town. And we haven't really talked about strategies to fill that in.
I think this plan though focuses right here in this downtown area. I mean, to me, when I look at this plan, yes, we have, it goes out, but to me, we're focusing really right here within this walkable area.
In our 2 square mile, radius, that's what we're focused on.
Right.
And we don't have any control past those lines, okay? So if all of a sudden the Walmart is built, Pomona Park, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. Now, that would really kind of wreck us a little bit. So what we have to do is really, I think of a more culture, which I think we are, the small shops, the nice restaurants, the parks, the lakes where people come in and enjoy the lakes, the trails, if we get those going, and the bird watching, all those things would make and keep Crescent City a destination. That's the way I'm looking at it. The other thing, I've always said to different people is the only thing that Crescent City really has going for it, I think that's really strong. Maybe I should step back. The worst thing that we have going for us is that where we're located, we're like right in the middle, okay, of Crescent Lake. We gotta go all the way around to get out of here, all the way around. It's tough, and it's tough for people. We're kind of landlocked in some respect. And that hurts us a little bit. But on the same hand, it will provide what I just talked about. We're the last city out of Putnam County. They were it before they head into, Pearson? Volusia. We are the last straw here. And my idea is, hey, we can make something here that's just really nice. People stop. We already got the motorcycles because of 3 Bananas. We can do a lot of different things to bring people in. Yep, bring them in, take their money. That sounds awful. Send them out. We're missing that right now.
And the master plan calls out X number of square footage, because you mentioned minimums needed for residential development. There's also minimums in commercial development. Somebody wants to build a new plaza, for instance, there's a minimum size. So we can lay out how we can get our downtown up to a minimum square footage. And then whether it fills in with a thrift store or a barber shop or a dentist or a boutique is up to our land development code and our allowable uses, and how we position ourselves through special events and marketing. If we're doing flea market downtown versus a wine stroll or an arts and farmers market, there's a difference. And so we can craft the content of what we build or what gets built here with our programming.
And we've already doing that, just right here on this strip, and what's allowable and what's not allowable.
In our new land development code, we do have a smaller set of allowable uses for our proposed central business district that will prevent car repair and gas stations and those kind of things on Central Avenue. That'll be a walkable district.
And the other thing I want to add is over the last 5 to 10 years, just perceptions have changed so much. Like people will pay to get the authentic experience rather than the convenience of a parking and a store. Like, so we've seen this continuously in the research from ULI, and can we create that experience that, a fine evening with, views over the lake and a dinner, and they'll pay for that rather than going to a strip mall and, eating at P.F. Chang's, for example. So that's, the mindset has changed so much, and I think we're in a good place for that, So having other developments, on the periphery, I don't think will deter any of the action that the downtown, if kind of built up in the way we want it to be, with quality and safety and the better experience, it won't deter us. It'll actually add that, because then we created an extra residential base that can actually support this area. We're seeing that in Tampa it's not big cities, but we're seeing that across the state.
I don't know, everybody talks about Naples, Florida. Well, I always talk about Naples, New York. I'm originally from New York. And if you know anything about the Finger Lakes, great wine region.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful up there in the fall. Great place to visit. But Naples is one of these little cities trying to make it, and it's just gorgeous. It's a lot like Mondora in a sense, but I keep going back every time I'm up there because there's a place called Cindy's Pies, and they're made out of, I'm just saying, their specialty there is Concord grapes. So they have, wine, pies, you name it. It's all about Concord grapes up there, and that's what we need. We need a calling card here that says you're gonna come to Crescent City for this, and I think that's what we're trying to build here, and I think we will.
We sat through, Charles, we sat through, remember with the gentleman that talked about the big walking donut, the big walking donut, And they built up that story around this donut, and all of a sudden, everybody always has to go into this town, to this one place, and.
John Shower.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah.
John Shower.
And that always resonates with me, is that you have to create that brings that excitement. And I do think that as we go, I think we have come so far, and I'm very proud of everything that we have been doing, what we continue to do. I think, this has got all of our thumbprints on this, and something we can look back on and be proud of. But I think also as we go forward, as businesses come in, businesses don't just open up. Businesses are gonna look at what's a need there, what's a niche there that they need to fill. And I think as we get the RV park, as it opens up, as possibly some of this development happens, we've got more and more people coming here from more urban areas because they want to get out of that urban environment, but yet they still want something here that provides them with entertainment. I think those businesses, I do believe that they're gonna come, they'll come. They will. And a lot of them right now are just watching. I mean, there's developers out there right now that are just watching, to see what's gonna happen. And it's not just our area, it's what's happening in Palatka with, the different industries that are coming into Palatka. We've got several of them that are making some big investments out there at the industrial park, and that's bringing a lot of jobs. Those people might it's an easy drive from here to there, and St. John's, as St. John's County continues to explode, you're seeing more and more people looking over here and saying, hey, I'd like to live there. So I think, we just have to be prepared, and yes, maybe not that we want 8,000 people, but that's really not for us to dictate either. It's whether or not those people want us, and they want to be here, and we just have to make it desirable for people to want to be here.
So going forward, we're gonna tweak this a little bit, and then on the 11th, the CRA will need to adopt and recommend approval to the commission, and the commission will have to adopt by ordinance, so to update the redevelopment plan. So we'll do two readings, just like we passed an ordinance in 2018 to update the redevelopment plan. We'll do it again.
Don't we have to have hearings and meetings specifically on the CRA plan, or do we count the meetings that we had on the master plan?
I'm not sure what we're gonna have a public hearing on the 11th for the first reading of the ordinance to update the
And then we'll have to have a
development plan.
second meeting.
And then on second reading in May.
Well, the last time we redid a CRA plan, we had separate hearings on the CRA plan, because I drove over to
The
attend.
workshop,
We had
well, that's what today is, and then we,
I don't know, it wasn't done this way, they didn't just bring the ordinance.
This was a different time.
well, you were expanding the CRA, so you had a finding of fact, you had to show the need and, you had a blight study and it was different, you were creating the north and south CRAs a lot in 2018.
Right, but
That made a
did
big difference.
we change the status of the central CRA, did we update it? Yeah, we did, we updated that central CRA plan, I remember.
Yeah, the whole plan, the 2018 plan got adopted at that time.
Right.
And so we're gonna update that plan. One thing I'm also looking into is can we extend the central CRA one more time? I think we can get another 10 years by majority vote. I've got to confirm that. I didn't make sure we didn't spend that in 2018, but I think we've got one more.
So I think right now, the big thing is, because this has been 2.5 hours, that we won't have that, so, on the next meeting. So, if you've got something on here that you see between now and then, because we're not gonna go through this page by page on the 11th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, it'll just be presented, it'll be presented to us. So if you have some changes, if you have some recommendations, between now and then, Charles, how do you want us to handle that?
Just send them to me.
Send them to Charles. Okay. And then just send them out to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, and they'll send them out to everybody. So with that, Commissioner Vito, did you have anything else that you?
No, just, I thought there was something Charles was going to send out the date, are we planning we need a workshop on something. You had mentioned it, and you said you would send out a survey monkey, with dates, but we don't know what that was for. I'm just mentioning it because I didn't get a survey monkey, so.
I thought it might have been this, and I think we determined that this would have been a good day.
I remember having a conversation that I was suggesting I could send out another survey.
No, it wasn't a, well, that's all right, if you think,
Survey monkey, yeah, I
if
can't
you think
remember.
of it, just, let us know. Because if I can't remember it and you can't remember it, it must not be that pressing of a need.
I don't ring a bell, but not all the way.
Okay, well, don't worry, like I say, if it's not at the top of the list, then far be it from me to suggest another meeting, that's
And
fine.
then we have this, we have our planning, we've already done our planning, so we're done with that, that'll come in one package deal, correct?
Oh, it was the workshop on the SAC, the school acquisition committee,
Oh, that's what it was.
to quantify the mission of the committee, the composition,
That's what it was.
how long it will exist, or all that stuff. Got all that.
Composition of that, and then their goals and objectives.
So you'll get back to us on that.
Yeah, so I ordered dates or later.
That's good enough.
Okay, is there anything else, gentlemen, that you, are you
We've
good?
exhausted everything.
Exhausted
We
everything?
appreciate
You
the,
exhausted us? so,
We
yeah.
appreciate the in-depth discussion.
Thank you. As
No,
always.
great, thank you very much. Commissioner, do you have anything else? If not, we'll go ahead and end this workshop. Thank you. Karen, thank you for taking care of, getting lunch and
Have a safe trip.
taking care of, you guys have a safe trip, and